My boyfriend, with whom I was discussing marriage, won a lottery prize of 10 million USD and immediately proposed to his dream girl. He gazed at her with deep affection, saying, "I couldn't provide you with a good life before and didn't want you to suffer with me. But now that I have money, will you be with me?" His mother, with an air of arrogance, told me, "Now that my son is successful, if you know what's best for you, you'll get rid of the baby and leave. Our family is not open to just anyone." I touched my flat stomach and smiled softly. Is 10 million really that much? Chapter 1. Lately, I've noticed something strange about my boyfriend of 3 years, James. He works at an interior design firm and overtime is common during busy periods. But recently, during the off-season, he started leaving early and coming home late, working more overtime than even during peak times. During dinner, he no longer paid attention to the taste of the food, mindlessly picking at his plate while distractedly scrolling through social media. I tried to have a heart-to-heart. "James, is something bothering you lately?" He quickly set down his phone and gave me a reassuring smile. "It's just that work has been stressful. We're at the stage of discussing marriage, but I feel I can't provide you with the life you deserve." My heart warmed a little. My family doesn't care much about that. We'll work hard together, and things will get better. He nodded, hesitating for a moment. "Lily, can we postpone meeting the parents? The company took on several big projects this month, and I'm swamped." I got up to clear the dishes. "Sure. My family is busy too, so let's wait a bit." He kissed my forehead and took the plates to the sink. "Let me do it. You've worked so hard preparing all this food every day." Watching him roll up his sleeves and busy himself in the kitchen, I felt slightly reassured. A week later was our 3-year anniversary. A week before, a friend had told me she saw James alone at a jewelry counter in a mall, picking out a diamond ring. "Lily, your boyfriend must be planning to propose." My heart raced, and I smiled with sweet anticipation. I thought today would be a special moment for us. But as evening closed in, James still hadn't come home. I shifted my slightly numb legs, and then my phone lit up in the dark. It was a message from James. "Lily, I'm really busy today. The whole department is working late. I'll be home later." I looked at the now cold food on the table, and my heart sank. Just as I was about to get up, another message came through. "Top floor, revolving restaurant, window seat A16, Glory Building." It was from Emma. 20 minutes later, I was seated in a corner of the restaurant, led there by a waiter. This was one of the most upscale restaurants in the city, known for its exquisite ambience and dishes, with each meal costing at least 5 figures. James and I had never had a date here. Now, the area by the window was adorned with blooming Juliet roses and romantic candlelight. The air was filled with intertwining notes of piano and violin. In the center of the soft glow, James knelt on one knee, holding a sparkling diamond ring, gazing deeply at the tall, beautiful figure before him. "Emma, I couldn't match you before, only watching from afar, hoping you'd be happy. But now I can offer you a comfortable life. I'll care for you with all my love and passion. Will you marry me?" Chapter 2. Under the watchful and kind eyes of the restaurant patrons, accompanied by their applause, I widened my eyes. It felt as though the blood in my body was turning cold, and I nearly lost the ability to speak. James and I were the same age, having met 3 years ago during graduation season. I was on a graduation trip, swimming at the beach, when I saw a little boy being swept away by the waves. With no time to call for help, I jumped into the sea to rescue him. However, he clung to me like a lifeline, making it difficult to swim back to shore. James appeared just in time, pulling the terrified child off me and swimming him to safety. He performed CPR on the boy, and when the ambulance arrived, he carefully helped me treat the cuts on my feet from the sand. While rinsing my wounds with bottled water, he looked up and gave me a thumbs up with a smile. "You're very brave." Feeling embarrassed for nearly failing in my rescue attempt, I awkwardly touched my nose. That incident led us to exchange contact information, and we discovered we were classmates graduating the same year, though from different majors. 3 months later, we started dating. James even gave up a job offer to move to my city and find a new job. I used to joke that 4 years of university didn't bring us together, but fate did in another city. He was nearly a perfect boyfriend, emotionally stable, gentle, and meticulous in his care for me. We shared the same interests, explored mountains and grasslands, visited scenic spots across the country, and filled our home with memories. Until now. I watched him, like a love-struck teenager, trembling on one knee, offering his love and a diamond ring to another woman. Ha! I picked up the lemon water on the table with trembling hands. The cold liquid sliding down my throat shocked me into a bit of calm. It's quite laughable. I was the one who introduced him to Emma. She was preparing for a solo art exhibition at the time and had given me a few tickets. I brought James to the exhibition, and we happened to see Emma being interviewed in front of one of her paintings. She wore a perfectly tailored red dress, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, and she had a bold, striking look. James seemed stunned. He tightened his grip on my hand, his fingers gently rubbing my palm. Feeling a bit shy, I looked up and noticed his gaze fixed on Emma, his eyes filled with undisguised admiration and infatuation. Chapter 3. My heart sank, but he quickly regained his composure and smiled apologetically at me. Did I hurt you? This painting is just so breathtaking. After a moment, he casually asked, "Is the artist someone you know? Should we go say hello?" Just then, Emma texted, saying the magazine wanted more shots in her studio, so she might not have time to meet us. I subconsciously let out a sigh of relief, paused briefly, and replied, "No, a colleague gave me the tickets." "Really?" James's gaze lingered on Emma's photo, and he absent-mindedly rubbed his fingers together. I secretly deleted the chat history with Emma, feeling an inexplicable sense of shame and sadness. But afterward, James still managed to get Emma's contact information. He approached her as an art enthusiast, openly expressing his admiration and inviting her to meet privately to discuss her work. Emma rarely responded, but it didn't dampen his enthusiasm. He explained to me that he was just a big fan of her artistic style, nothing more. Looking at Emma's messages and his calm demeanor, I chose to believe him. I told myself those messages hadn't crossed the line. Even though he suddenly started paying attention to his hairstyle and clothing, and his closet now held an expensive suit and a pair of handcrafted shoes with the tag still on. Even though he had shown little interest in art before meeting Emma. But James had saved me. With his encouragement, I followed my heart and became an illustrator, earning an unstable income, yet he never pressured me. I should trust him and give him a chance. Until now. I realized I had no more reason to ignore the truth. On the other side, the grand proposal continued. Emma didn't accept the ring, instead, she crossed her arms and looked down at him. "As far as I know, you have a girlfriend you've been with for several years, right?" James hesitated, then smiled sadly. "I did have a girlfriend, but we broke up a while ago. Her family looked down on me because I was poor, couldn't buy a house, or afford an 180,000 yuan's dowry, and forced her to break up with me." I closed my eyes. In 3 years of knowing him, I never realized he was such a skilled liar, weaving half-truths effortlessly. Emma raised an eyebrow. "But from what you're saying now, you should be able to afford a dowry and a house." James looked passionately at Emma. "Emma, my past girlfriend is history. They were too materialistic, always dividing people by wealth. I won't give them another chance. At your art show 4 months ago, I fell in love at first sight. Before meeting you, I never thought I could feel such overwhelming passion. I swear, I will only love you from now on." He pulled a lottery ticket from his suit pocket. "Emma, I won the lottery. 10 million. I can buy you a villa, luxury goods, and give you a life of comfort. I no longer have to watch you from afar like a pathetic clown. I can invest this money, become an entrepreneur, and rise to the top." Chapter 4. Looking at the familiar lottery ticket in his hand, I exhaled deeply. It was the ticket we bought together on my birthday. I had even fantasized about winning 10 million, giving James 8 million to start a business and keeping 2 million for myself. What had James said back then? He tapped my forehead with a smile. If I won 10 million, I'd buy you a house in Dali, where we'd grow flowers and fish, turning half into a guest house to meet like-minded friends and spend half the year traveling the world. I always believed he was my true soulmate. I thought it was just an ordinary losing lottery ticket. Yet here was James, silently winning 10 million and using it to propose to his dream girl. His gentle words still echoed in my ears. I touched my face, wiped away a tear, and released the last shred of attachment. Emma laughed, her gaze sweeping across the restaurant until it landed on me, curled up in a shadowy corner. She smirked. Taking the ring from James, she casually inspected it under the candlelight. In his hopeful gaze, she flicked her finger, sending the ring into a champagne glass. Mr. James, we're not that close, and certainly not at the proposal stage. Your one-sided fantasy is quite troubling. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going home. As the whispers of the onlookers filled the air and James's face turned crimson with embarrassment, Emma turned and left gracefully. I stood up and walked to the dejected James. He looked up slowly, his expression shifting the moment he saw me. Lily, what are you doing here? Chapter 5. He still wanted to cover it up. I poured champagne over his head. James, is this what you call working late? He wiped his face, irritation flickering in his eyes. Lily, are you stalking me? I looked at the disgust and unfamiliarity on his face reflected in the glass wall, suddenly feeling drained. I realized I probably never truly knew this person. James, let's break up. He seemed unfazed, almost smug. Lily, playing hard to get has its limits. I can explain, but if you say break up, don't come crying to me later. I shot him a cold glance, slapped him twice, and walked away without looking back. James, you disgust me. As I made my way to the roadside, amidst the honking of passing cars, a hand pulled me back. Lily, watch where you're going. It was Emma. I stumbled into her, smearing my tears and snot on her clothes. None of your business. Emma patted my back soothingly, just like when we were kids. Good thing you haven't introduced this boyfriend to the family, otherwise, Dad would be furious. I blinked hard. He's already an ex-boyfriend. Emma pinched my cheek playfully. Good girl. Big sister will take you to the bar for some fun. There are plenty of fish in the sea. I struggled against her grip, the bitterness in my heart fading. No need. I need to pack my things. She pointed at the sleek Bugatti parked by the curb. It's late. You can pack tomorrow, or do you want to spend one more night there? I relented. I'll go with you first. Emma affectionately rubbed my face. Let's go home. What James didn't know was that Emma was my half-sister. We grew up together. She lost her mother at 3, and 3 years later, our father remarried and had me. To honor her mother, Emma kept her maiden name, but that didn't affect our bond. I heard Emma had withdrawn after her mother died, and it was my extraordinary attachment that helped bring her back. Even before I could walk, I crawled after her, nestled in her arms, refusing to be held by anyone else. With me following her around, my mom treated Emma like her own daughter. It took Emma over a year to come out of her shell. Our father is a fortunate man. With average abilities and a gentle nature, he rose to the top 3 wealthiest in the province, thanks to connections from 2 prominent families. When I started dating James, Emma, like a concerned mother, repeatedly urged me to keep my family background a secret. She wanted me to find a purer relationship. I wasn't one for extravagance. I was content living simply with James, using my allowance to slightly elevate our lifestyle. I planned to introduce him to my parents soon. But now, there was no need. The next day, I declined Emma's offer to drive me and took a taxi back to the house I shared with James. He hadn't returned all night, and the food on the table had long gone cold. I ignored it, packed my clothes and belongings, and in a final act of defiance, I gathered all the high-end custom shoes and clothes I had given him, filling 2 large suitcases. Just as I was about to leave, James's mother, Mrs. Green, showed up with bags of groceries. She glanced around at the mess, her expression souring, and began to shout from the doorway. "Oh my, what happened? Did we get robbed?" Then she turned to me, her voice sharp. "Lily, I was never satisfied with you dating my son, but he liked you. Look at James, handsome and the only child, inheriting our properties. So many good girls want to marry him. Look at yourself, with an average family background and a job that's barely more than freelancing, essentially living off a man, right? I didn't want to say much, but look at this place. Is this how you live? Is this how my son lives with you?" Chapter 6. I glanced at the hen and the big bag of eggs in her red plastic bag, lowered my eyes. "Mrs. Green, excuse me, I need to leave." She got even more riled up, shouting, "Oh my, giving me attitude even before you're part of the family?" I closed my eyes, suppressing my irritation. "Cynthia, your precious son is cheating on me. I'm leaving this mess behind." Her eyes darted and she lunged at my suitcase. "What nonsense! Can't keep a man, so you're leaving with his stuff? This was all bought with James's money, leave it. I heard from James you're pregnant with our family's child. You want to leave, go ahead, but who's going to want you? You're practically useless without a man." My eyes widened. James's calm demeanor from last night flashed before me, and realization dawned. A month ago, I had casually mentioned to James that my period was 10 days late. Coincidentally, a friend had just announced her pregnancy, and I had been browsing baby products online and ordered a baby outfit as a gift. So, James thought I was pregnant and took me for granted? I almost laughed out loud. In the past, with James mediating, I tolerated Cynthia's constant criticism. But now, why should I? Cynthia reached for my suitcase, and I threw the hen into the room and hurled the bag of eggs at her. She stood stunned at the door, egg yolk and white dripping down her clothes, both ridiculous and embarrassing. The hen flapped around the living room, finally perching on the leather sofa and leaving a mess. Fueled by rage, I grabbed a broom and smashed everything I had bought but couldn't take with me. The coffee table, paintings, projector, tea set, and last night's dinner. A whole pot of greasy chicken soup splashed at Cynthia's feet. She screamed and jumped, getting splashed with the greasy liquid. I smiled at her and then grabbed a photo frame, smashing it against the table. To hell with James. To hell with his 10 million. A lottery ticket showed me someone's true colors, but why should I care? Why should he get to choose without hesitation, and I have to grovel to this nasty old woman? Amid the wreckage and debris, I smiled at the dumbfounded Cynthia. "Can you move now?" She instinctively stepped back. I exhaled, threw 300 yuan compensation for the eggs at her, and walked out of the house I had lived in for 3 years, now unrecognizable. Chapter 7. I returned to my family's mansion. My room was always kept clean by the maids, and Emma regularly replaced the paintings on my walls. All of them were her own works. It felt like she was playing a game of dressing up a doll and decorating a room with me. Just like now. I stared blankly at the pile of designer clothes spread across my bed, feeling a post-rage exhaustion wash over me. Emma, dressed in a sharp suit, was holding up a doll-collared dress, her face flushed with excitement. "Try this on. I knew it would be perfect for you the moment I saw it. It's been too long since you've dressed up." That's when James called. "Lily, you've gone too far. My mother is furious because of you. Come back and apologize. Do you still want to be with me or not? If you come back, clean up the house, and make my mom happy, I can forgive you and take responsibility for you and the baby. Otherwise, you can cry all you want." Emma's fists clenched, crackling with anger. But I was calm. Maybe it was the cathartic release from earlier, or Emma's usual affection grounding me, or perhaps his arrogance shattered my last illusion of him. I realized this person was never who I thought he was. I patted Emma's shoulder reassuringly and replied coldly, "James, What baby? What apology? What delusion have you concocted? We've broken up. Your mother tried to steal my belongings, and I let it slide out of old time's sake. If you push it, I have the video of your rejected proposal. Should I post it to explain our breakup? James began to speak, but Mrs. Green snatched the phone, cursing. You think you're something special? James won 10 million. He can marry anyone he wants. Now he's made it big, you should get rid of the baby and leave. Our door isn't open to just anyone. James is destined for high society. You, with your small-time background and nasty attitude, won't even qualify to be a servant in our house. Go cry in a corner. I endured her tirade, picturing her spittle flying as she spoke. When she paused for breath, I simply said, 10 million isn't much. Mrs. Green was stunned, and I hung up, blocking their numbers. Emma watched me with concern as I stared at the polished floor, a slight smile on my lips. 10 million is just my annual allowance. Besides, just because he won it doesn't mean he can keep it. I looked at Emma and smiled. Sis, our annual charity auction is in 2 weeks, right? Chapter 8. James didn't give up on pursuing Emma. With my persuasion, Emma tolerated James remaining in her contacts, despite her disgust. The price was another half hour of Emma's affectionate teasing. I heard James quit his decent job, used the money to start a company, and bought an expensive wardrobe. Mrs. Green flaunted her newfound wealth on social media, boasting about her son's success and new status. James even tried to contact me with different numbers, implying I should stop playing hard to get and hinting at his superiority. But it didn't matter. To bring someone down, let them first climb high. I blocked all his numbers and sent him an invitation to the charity auction as the host. Attending such an event meant mingling with the elite. James's lottery winnings after taxes barely qualified him to attend. No matter. I gave him the qualification. On the night of the auction, I arrived elegantly dressed, escorted by Ethan, Emma's cousin. I spotted James in the crowd. He stared at me, stunned and awed. Our eyes met, and just as he opened his mouth, I turned away, gliding into the dance floor with Ethan. After a dance, Ethan whispered, Lily, that guy over there, do you know him? He looks out of place and keeps glaring at me. I glanced at James, his flashy outfit looking ridiculous, and smirked, whispering back to Ethan, I need a favor. He blushed. Anything. When Ethan left to chat, James dragged me to a corner, his face full of indignation. Lily, how could you degrade yourself like this? Being some rich guy's plaything. Where's your pride? He's just using you. What true feelings could he have? Even if we break up, think of our past and the baby. I'm willing to support you. With my status now, you're no match for me, but I can't let you ruin yourself. Once the baby is born, I'll visit often. He still thought I was pregnant. I couldn't even muster an eye roll, shaking off his grip, but he clung on like a leech. Ethan appeared just in time, stepping between us with a sardonic smile. Sir, what are you trying to do to my date? Ethan, tall and impeccably dressed, exuded an air of elegance that made James look even more like an imposter. Under Ethan's scrutinizing gaze, James fumed. He was about to grab me again but froze. Emma approached. In a velvet green dress, she looked ethereal, her eyes captivating. She linked arms with Ethan, resting her cheek on his shoulder. Ethan, I've been looking for you. Dad's calling us. James's eyes widened in disbelief. You. Ethan cast a cold glance at James, chuckling as we walked away. James's gaze felt like it could burn a hole in our backs. Chapter 9. James, riled up, lost his cool. During the auction, he seemed fixated on competing with Ethan, aggressively bidding. Ethan matched him every time, winning each bid. But I knew James hadn't lost all reason. His winnings, after taxes and recent spending, left him with just enough for the auction's $300,000 deposit. He aimed to make Ethan pay more. But his obsession with Emma and my supposed betrayal blinded him. The next item was a painting by Emma, titled, Childhood. It depicted two little girls running through an autumn forest, hand in hand. It was of our childhood. My heart warmed as Emma's hand gently hooked my finger under the table, her voice soft and firm. Lily, no matter what, we'll support you. I smiled. Ethan's hand ruffled our hair, and he declared to the room that this painting was by someone dear to him, and he was determined to get it. I glanced at James. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with rage. The bidding began, and James went wild. 100,000, 150,000, 200,000, 300,000, 600,000, 800,000, 10 no, 1 million. The room had long exited the bidding, leaving James like a desperate gambler, raising the stakes. When he trembled and shouted 1 million, Ethan shrugged, smiling warmly at James. Since Mr. James values the painting so highly, I won't take it. James stood paralyzed. The painting's price had far exceeded its value, and with Ethan's withdrawal, no one else bid. The auctioneer's final call echoed, and as the gavel fell, applause erupted, freezing James's contorted face in a grotesque expression. Peeking from behind Ethan, I gave James a sweet smile. 1 million a lot? James finally understood he had been set up. He lunged at me, only to be restrained by security, screaming curses. You did this on purpose. Lily, you whore! How many times did you spread your legs for him to help you trap me? You'll all die, ah. And the murmurs around him pierced his ears. This guy is nuts. He dared to insult the daughter of the Han family and her cousin. Serves him right. He's not even worth mentioning. James froze. He turned robotically, staring at the two men. What did you say? Who is the Han family's daughter? They recoiled. Lily Han, the youngest daughter of Han Enterprises. Emma is the eldest. Ethan is their cousin from the Wen family. How did you get into this auction? James's face drained of color. In the eyes of pity and scorn, he looked like a strangled goose, gasping before collapsing. Chapter 10. Passing out didn't solve his problems. When James woke, he had to pay $800,000 on top of the $300,000 deposit. Ethan said he begged everyone to annul the bid, but it was futile. He called me, crying. Lily! Save me! I was blind to leave you. Emma seduced me. You're the only one I love. For the sake of our baby, help me. Don't you want our child to have a father? Yes, I was wrong. But you lied too. We're even. We can start over. Introduce me to your parents. I can be the Han family's son-in-law. $1 million is nothing. I coldly told him. James, I gave you a chance. The ring you bought, the bids you made, the pregnancy you imagined, none of it was forced upon you. It was all your choice. Sorry, I owe you nothing, and I won't help you. In the end, James was fined $300,000 for malicious bidding by the Market Regulation Department, in addition to losing his $300,000 deposit. He closed his fledgling company, paid hefty severance fees, and sold his new car and luxury items to pay up. I imagined Mrs. Green watching her son sell off the gold jewelry she had barely worn. Her expression must have been priceless. But all this did was make James return the $1 million he had won. It didn't ruin him. I didn't want to destroy him completely. But Mrs. Green, learning of my true identity, shamelessly tried to reconcile. Security blocked her at the gate of our mansion. She even tried to intercept my car, holding an hen. Lily, there was a misunderstanding. You and James were such a good match, don't let a little fight ruin it. James misses you so much he's fallen ill. Visit him at the hospital. My eyes fell on the familiar hen, and I momentarily spaced out. The hen, as if in agreement, flapped its wings and pecked at the car's paint, leaving small dents. The driver's face darkened. Mrs. Green froze. I laughed. Mrs. Green, this is a limited edition Porsche. The repair will cost tens of thousands. Cash or card? She turned red, glaring at me, the driver, and the hen, before running off. Chapter 11. I let Mrs. Green off the hook. But she bragged everywhere, claiming her son had impregnated the heiress of Han Enterprises and would soon inherit billions. I hadn't realized the whole family had delusions. Or maybe they needed to believe it to cope with losing such wealth and to cling to hope with me. But it no longer mattered to me. Our lawyers sent a cease and desist letter, warning them of legal action for spreading false information. Mrs. Green tried to play the victim, but I sent her a $300,000 bill for the Porsche's paint job, and she shut up. James had to publicly apologize and retract the rumors. Their story became a laughingstock. Everyone mocked James for betraying a billionaire's daughter over a lottery win, quitting his job, and nearly losing everything out of spite. He couldn't stay in the city. It was said that James, driven mad, often muttered, "I have $1 million, I have $1 million." Doctors diagnosed him with a mental breakdown, suggesting he leave the stressful environment to recover. Mrs. Green had to take him back to their hometown. I laughed it off and moved on. Months passed and the fuss over the Green family faded. I continued to grow my career as an illustrator, gaining some fame. Emma, having achieved her artistic dreams, took over the family business as the new CEO of Han Enterprises. Some old-timers grumbled about an outsider leading, trying to stir trouble between Emma and me. I scoffed. Who'd want the CEO's stress when I could live a carefree life with a powerful sister? But Emma couldn't stand my leisure. She often feigned illness to make me handle her workload. Imagine a fierce CEO pouting like a child, it's surreal. I laughed it off, planning a world tour with Ethan, only to be stopped at the airport. Emma, in a sharp red suit, gave me a pitiful look. "Lily, abandoning your sister, doesn't your conscience hurt?" I thought of our pet ragdoll cat. Before I could respond, Emma kicked Ethan out of the helicopter and pulled me in. "I told the board you'd handle things for 3 months." Ethan stared, speechless, as we flew away. Emma pinched my cheeks. "Silly girl, your taste in men is still terrible." I smiled sheepishly. "But I picked you as my sister." Emma's eyes softened, gazing at the bright sun and white clouds. She sighed. But I heard her words clearly. She said, "We will have a better future."